तत्पुरुषाय विद्महे वक्रतुण्डाय धीमहि तन्नो दन्दिः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ जयन्ती मंगलकाली भद्रकाली कपालिनी दुर्गा क्षमा शिवधात्री स्वाहा स्वादा नमोस्तुते। ॐ शांति शांति शांति। Sairam Lane, Sairam from Malaysia.
Sairam Sharma, Sairam from New Zealand, and welcome to our listeners wherever you may be. Today our topic is Swami, his inestimable power. And inestimable means you cannot estimate it, you cannot put limits on it. Swami is a powerhouse, and his power is so great that we as human beings cannot begin to fathom it. And that is why he says, you can never understand me. You can never understand my power. And he said to one group that there are 16 dimensions, and he is working simultaneously in all of them. And beyond those 16, in another dimension, there are 32 powers, all of which he has. Beyond that dimension are 64 powers, all of which he has, and so on into infinity. Our gray matter, as Swami calls it, cannot begin to comprehend this. But I can give several small but very telling experiences personally of his power that prove to me that he is divine beyond all imagining. I was sitting in the front row one day in Kulwant Hall. It was afternoon darshan, and Swami was somewhat late. Towards the end of his life, he was not always coming to both darshans during the day, and when he did come, sometimes he would only do one round, sometimes not even a full round. But in the days when he was walking, he often did a number of rounds. You never knew which way he was going to turn. And even if he had not gone past you the first time, he may come round and do a second, what we called a second round or a third round, and you would have a wonderful experience and not be expecting it. That made it extra special. This was one of these days. Swami was walking most beautifully and gracefully, and I was sitting in the front row. He had already done a round, and he was about to call some people on the veranda in for an interview, when suddenly he changed his mind and swung down between the two lions and came walking past the lady's side. And then he was going to turn again and go back up onto the veranda. I was on the front row, and he walked past, and of course, everyone is so happy when Swami is coming past them. Everyone has raised their hands and namaste, and beaming and so excited. And I was no different. I was beaming. I was so happy. And he walked past me. I could feel the rush of breeze coming off of his robe. And then unexpectedly, it hit me like a ton of bricks. It was a wave of so much incredible power that it knocked me over. He didn't say anything, he didn't look at me, but it was like an unseen force hitting me. And it wasn't painful, it was just like a force unseen just knocking me over to the side. I couldn't even hold on to myself. I was just knocked over into the ladies who were sitting next to me. Luckily, they were right up close against me, and I fell into their laps. That's how powerful it could be being close to him. And I understand completely what Swami said when he said, you have no idea, he said once, how difficult it is for me to hold in all this power. Because it was so tremendous, so great, that it had that literal power of knocking you over the way an atom bomb would knock you over. And I remember sitting there thinking, wow, who is this? Who can project such force as to knock me over? and of course I wasn't expecting to be knocked over, I can tell you, but it was the most profound feeling, and I wasn't afraid. I was just in awe. When we had our first interview with Swami, my husband, of course, had some wonderful interactions with Swami. And when he came out of the interview room, he noticed that suddenly his vision had changed. And when he looked at plants, he could see rays of light, crystal-like forms being exuded by plants. This is something we don't normally see. We know that every living thing has an aura around it, but these are not something that you would normally see with the naked eye. But my husband was in such an elevated state of mind, having been that close to Bhagavan's physical form, that his vision had changed into another dimension where he could actually see the auras of plants. He said each plant had a different kind of aura with light formations coming off of the branches or the petals or the leaves, and they were the most beautiful crystal-like formations. And this ability stayed with him for, I believe, several days. And it was only when we began to take food that was based on grains, my husband and I, when we had these experiences, that we came down from this state of divine bliss from having experienced Swami's tremendous power. Another thing that happened several times when Swami walked past me, I literally felt a piece of my scalp detach itself from my head, float off, and just go poof. And I would reach up to my head thinking, what is this? I can feel a piece of my head coming off. And I think it must have been something that had attached itself to me. I can't explain it. Perhaps it was some old form of grief, some old thought form that I needed to let go of but was not able to. Swami can do this. If you have a thought form, let us say fear of extreme punishment, which is something that I endured from my childhood. I was very afraid of extreme punishment. This can form a literal form that attaches itself to your head or your heart or your spine, and it can just be stuck there. But Swami was able to remove these things. It was the sort of thing that it would haunt you. Years and years after it had happened, it was like a grief, a trauma that you could never let go of. But he was able to loosen it, and it literally felt, for me, like a physical detachment of something literally peeling off of me, floating off into the atmosphere of the mandir, and then just going poof, like being disintegrated, blown to pieces. And this is what he could do. He could blow to pieces your past karma with just a glance, with just a look, if it was his will, if he was feeling so inclined, if he knew it was the right thing for your spiritual progress, because many of us have things that were holding us back from realizing who we really are. We had so many misconceptions. As Swami said, your hearts have been through so many incarnations and have been surrounded after so many lifetimes with darkness. It could be darkness that was brought about by trauma, of grief, of loss, of misunderstandings, of crimes committed against you. So many things. And he said, I look for those hearts that have a small, steady flame that is burning in spite of all these difficulties that you have been through so many lifetimes. He said, I am looking for that small, steady flame in your spiritual heart. It is my duty to make it grow bigger and brighter. Who else can do that? It reminded me of a gentleman that I met in Whitefield who said on his first darshan of Swami, he saw hundreds of little Swamis come out from Swami's heart. And there was one little Swami would go into the heart of every single person in that darshan area in Sai Ramesh Hall. He couldn't believe his eyes. Of course, no one else saw this, but he had this divine vision, and he said it was like golden threads coming out from Swami's heart, and then a little miniature Swami on the end of each golden thread entering each person's chest, their spiritual heart, and filling them with his love, with his clarity, with his beauty, with his grace, his blessings, with his divinity. It's like a divine injection of the spiritual doctor. Who else can do this? Who else? I ask all of you to think of Swami and send him your love. This is all he wants. And he says only when love is achieved will the world become an earthly paradise. Where love prevails, there will be no room for hatred or envy, and love can have no truck with evil thoughts and actions. If one goes hopping from one Swami to another, from one form of worship to another, he will never experience love of the divine. One word, one path, that should be the aim. Transform your entire life into a saga of love. You will then lack nothing to make you happy. All wealth and position will be added unto you. Love conquers all. And this is from Sathya Sai Speaks, volume 29. Om Shri Sai Ram.
Om Shri Sai Ram. तस्मात् कारुण्य भावेन रक्ष रक्ष साईश्वरा. हरि ओम तत्सत् श्री साईश्वरार्पणमस्तु. ओम शांति शांति शांति.